Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I would like to thank our sponsors for their generous support, without which, of course, this summit would not have been possible. Our premium sponsor, Imperial Tobacco. Our gold sponsors, Triglav, Turkish Airlines, Visa, and Tikvesh. And of course, all of our other sponsors. Thank you so much. And now we have an exciting session coming up. It's titled ChatGPT Unplugged, a look into the future of AI. I would like to welcome our Board of Directors member, Nevenka Dimitrova, together with Guruduth Banavar. He will be joining us online. Nevenka, you have the floor.
Thank you, Galina. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Perfect. So welcome to this ChatGPT session where we are going to be chatting about ChatGPT. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me and inviting our prestigious speaker. Our speaker is actually not new to Macedonia 2025. If I recall, he gave a keynote speech on IBM Watson many years ago. And it's tremendous that we go kind of in sync with technology developments. So this is really exciting now. And I would just like to say it has been a tremendous lineup of speakers and tremendous successful conference so far. So we just have to keep it up, Guru. Okay, so let me do a quick introduction of Guru. He is Guru by name, but he's also a guru of AI. His relationship to AI goes something like 3 decades or more, starting with his undergraduate, and I believe he designed an expert system, which would have been a predecessor of today's ChatGPT, for legal, which back then was really, truly even unheard of. Right now, Guru is a Chief Technology Officer. He's a founder of Biome, where he leads AI and discovery, both for diagnostics, life sciences, and beyond. And I will ask questions, so it's better for Guru to describe what he does at Biome. And before that, he was a Global Vice President and Chief Science Officer at IBM and a member of CEO's top executive team, where he led many type of technology developments in the past and collaborated with different universities from MIT and CMU to others, has given many talks and lectures such as delivering the 2017 Turing Lecture. He has spoken at the Nobel Week in Sweden and many others. Holds more than 35 US patents, and his work has been featured in many articles and many, recently Damon John, the Shark Tank guru, hosted Guru exactly about ChatGPT. So without further ado, dobro utro, Guru. Welcome, Guru. We know you are Makedonski Zet, and we are honored. We are honored to have you here at our Macedonia 2025 summit. I first would like to open our conversation with the question about why is the world so bewildered about ChatGPT? Can you please tell us first some background on the technology, why ChatGPT and why now? Articles in Wall Street Journal and top executives, everybody in the industry who has some investment money is wondering whether they should throw everything they have at it and so on. So can you please illuminate on this topic?
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me. I hope I'm being heard properly in the hall over there. It looks like an incredible production, so congratulations on such a great production. So first of all, let me step back and say that AI is potentially one of the most disruptive forces for humanity. I think businesses are going to be completely transformed. I think our lives are going to be completely transformed. Every single profession is going to be completely transformed. And so I think it's appropriate that we put the kind of attention that we're putting into this new development. Why now is because I think ChatGPT has demonstrated to the world, and in fact, it's millions and millions of users. I don't know if you guys have noticed that within a few days, ChatGPT had more than 1 million users once it was released. And within a couple of weeks, it had more than 100 million users around the world. And that is the impact and the nature of this technology. And why is it that so many people are interested? It's because it's not that this technology was just invented overnight. This technology has been in development for many decades now. If you just go back 1 or 2 decades, you will see that neural network AI architectures have been in development for many fields. For example, for understanding images, generating new kinds of images, self-driving cars, even the Siri on your iPhones, for example, or Google Talk or Amazon Alexa. All of these are examples of the early generations of this technology. But what is new is that around 2017, there was a brand new type of AI architecture that was generated or that was created that was called the transformer, which was originally designed for translating from one language to another, but it turned out to be such a powerful technology, these transformers. The GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformers. So these transformer technologies are so good that they have now been trained with the entire language corpus or data that's on the internet. Once you think about the amount of data we have and we are able to train these new technologies, you can see that they can learn a lot of things. Everything that's ever been written down in pretty much any language has now been learned by these transformers. And they've been growing larger and larger and larger. And now we have this new world called large language models, which are incredibly big. These large language models, or LLMs, they're so big that it takes up about the energy of New York City for a day to train these models. It's that level of energy, that amount of data. When it reached that level of scale, suddenly it has started to do things that people did not expect. It was showing emergent capabilities. It's doing things that, things that were not trained for. And it was surprising a lot of people, including the creators themselves. So I think it's a very special moment in the evolution of AI, and I think it's created this kind of big splash. Everybody knows about it. I think it's going to transform all of our lives, so I think we should pay attention to it. Countries and businesses that understand this technology and apply it well are going to be making a huge difference in the world. There's also some possibilities that this can go bad, and we should talk about that as well. And I think we should all together figure out how to deal with this and how to improve humanity because of this.
So thank you. This was very, very informative. And before we continue any further, I know that on the previous panel, the chair asked how many people have used ChatGPT, and many hands went up. Can I ask if you have used ChatGPT, say, in the last 1 week? Please raise your hand. Many, many hands go up. I cannot see because I'm like blinded by these reflectors. But so we have a very ChatGPT literate audience, just for you to know. As you might expect, we have a room full of leaders, excellencies, and CXOs. Then the next question is, raise your hand if ChatGPT has made a big difference in your daily work in the last few months. Now, fewer hands go up, but still a significant number. So that's really, really great. Thank you. Thank you for that. So then my next question would be, so we see kind of in any technological wave, it's either a tsunami, and then it hits few major applications, and then there is a long tail of applications. But one of the first applications that has been talked about and praised is integration of this technology into Bing search engine. So can I please ask you to comment on this, and how do you see this, this marriage of sorts working out?
Yeah, this is a little bit more complicated than one might initially assume. And here's why. I think, first of all, the business model of search is that, the company that hosts a search engine makes money when somebody clicks on a link, right? So you cannot think that a question answering system like ChatGPT, which does not have any links, can make money, right? Because if you don't click on links, then there's no advertisements and there's no revenue stream and so forth. So I think there's a business model question there. But I think that will be overcome by making ChatGPT provide references and sources for its data. Now, you may think that that's a pretty straightforward evolution of that technology, but it turns out technically that's not super easy to do, because ChatGPT has learned, all these large language models have learned relationships between words in a very, very large corpus, and it's sometimes not easy to tease out where a particular word or a phrase or a sentence came from. So that's a pretty difficult thing to do. But people have figured out some ways of doing this, and it's kind of still very early in its development, that you can have a few decent links, but it's not necessarily as good as the links that you may get, okay, in a regular search engine like Google yet. So it's going to take some time for that whole technology and business model to develop. Now, here is another problem. In a traditional search engine, the cost of a single search may be something like 3 cents per search, but today, the energy and the cost of a ChatGPT-based search engine may be 10 times that. So something like 30 cents per search. Now, that is prohibitive. So if the cost is so high and if the revenue is so low, it may not be possible for companies to monetize a technology like this today. But I think it's going to be a matter of time. People are going to find ways of optimizing the technology and also figuring out how to have the appropriate kinds of link backs or references to the source material, which is super important for everybody to understand, in order not only for the business model, but also to figure out whether the chat engine, the large language model, is providing the right answers. I don't know if you realize, but one of the biggest drawbacks of large language models is what is known as hallucination, which is that it can make up things which are not true. And every generation of these large language models has been improving in its ability to understand what has been learned and only provide true information, but still 30% or 40% even of truth is currently found lacking in the latest generation of GPT models. And that is a big concern. So when if you have a search engine that gives you information and you trust the search engine, and if it gives you wrong information, that can essentially amount to misinformation or disinformation, which has huge ramifications in the world, because we already have a lot of misinformation and disinformation. If you keep propagating that, in the world, that's going to become its own problem. And I think that can cause a problem to democracy, that can cause a problem to our society in a way that we can't even imagine at the moment. So I think there are lots of challenges, but at the same time, I think there are a lot of opportunities. In the next few years, I think you should track it and see how this can provide the kind of search engine capabilities that you might want.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting topic, actually, on the precision of the answers of the technology. In my own experience, when I was chatting with ChatGPT to help me design a cancer vaccine, it actually had one of the answers. This is for the audience to just know how wrong it can be. It said that actually Merck is working on a cancer vaccine. It gave it a name. The name is M7824. And it refers basically to a drug that's now in clinical trials, but it's not a cancer vaccine at all. It gave all of the details that it's in fact immunotherapy designed to combine a checkpoint inhibitor with TGF-beta, very, very scientific and technical, while it didn't know that this is not a vaccine at all, and that was the claim. So I want to ask you the next question, which is, because you are in your company, in Biome, what you do and how you use ChatGPT, and what are your plans to use this technology?
Oh, thank you. So
healthcare.
first of all, Biome is a company that provides personalized and precise nutrition, supplement plans, and other kinds of diagnostics that is intended to help you with your journey of health over your entire lifetime. And it provides a very precise individual solutions to you as an individual person, not as a general thing across the entire population or everybody that looks like you and so on, right? It's very specific to you. And the reason we are able to succeed with that kind of precision is because we look at what is going on in each of your molecular pathways, meaning your biology as determined by RNA, ribonucleic acids, which are a critical part of how your biology reacts to your environment. So we also look at all the microbes that's in your body. Like, for example, your gut has a lot of microbes, your mouth has a lot of microbes. So understanding all of those microbes and the host interaction allows us to make very specific recommendations to given individuals. Now, I say all of that because doing that requires a different type of AI than ChatGPT. ChatGPT is optimized for language and for interacting and chatting with human beings. But the kind of AI that we use in Biome is a very different type of AI, which is able to understand molecular data at the biological level and health data when people talk about their symptoms and the drugs they take and so on and so forth. So we put together this different AI, and we are able to provide people very precise answers. Now, ChatGPT, as it stands, is not very individualized or precise to any given individual because it doesn't yet know about your molecular data, your biological pathways, your health issues, and so on and so forth. So, there is, a different type of AI that's required for the two worlds. Right? ChatGPT is intended for having conversations, and Biome's AI is intended for understanding biology and providing solutions for your health problems. But you can combine the two, and you can make the two work together in such a way that it can make it easier for you to have a better life. For example, imagine that your phone has a health coach. It's sort of in your pocket all the time. Every time you go to a restaurant, you pick up your phone and your phone tells you, hey, look, I checked your, the menu in this restaurant, and the best thing for you to eat right now is this Brussels sprouts, and then maybe it's these beans, and this kind of drink, and so on and so forth. That may be the best thing for you at that time. And that kind of AI can exist in the very near future because Biome's AI is able to determine for you what is the right thing to do, and something like ChatGPT can be a front end to that technology that then talks to you in a way that you understand. Maybe it speaks in Makedonsky, and it uses your particular dialect, and it uses all kinds of words and your history of what matters to you and how you like to interact with people and so forth. So it makes it more convincing and more trustworthy because it has the right language interface with you. But ChatGPT by itself is not able to understand biology, which requires a different type of AI. Now, that also brings me to combining these different AIs, language AIs versus biological AIs and other kinds of AIs can be combined together to make larger solutions happen. And that, I think, is going to make a huge change to pretty much every business.
That's an amazing description of the positives and how ChatGPT and large language models can be combined with other technologies. I have another question, but that towards the end. I want to now switch to a question. Actually, I generated some questions for you using ChatGPT. I described the panel, so I thought it's like using recursion, in the good old geeky sense.
How do you know that I'm not using ChatGPT to answer those questions?
That we don't know. So if it's too eloquent, then it must be ChatGPT. So by the way, I also asked ChatGPT, how much did it cost to be trained? And it very eloquently dodged the question. And when I said, okay, the Wall Street Journal says the training of these large language models can be north of $1 billion, then it was kind of cornered, but still it knew that should not answer my question, which is quite an improvement. So related to this, because these models, and as you mentioned, just answering a question takes resources and so on. So because it's a very coveted new technology, of course, we want it to be used for very important global challenges such as climate change, social inequality, global health issues. I know one issue that's very dear to your heart is literacy, increasing literacy in the world, just eliminating any illiteracy in the world. So what is your opinion on how this technology can be used to solve the really important problems for humanity? And along the way, investors are listening now and should get a little bit of a hunch whether they should stay put or lean forward and invest somewhere.
Yeah, I truly believe that AI technologies in general are going to be transformative. Just to give you a sense of it, in the next maybe decade or 2 decades or 3 decades, there will not be a single industry that will not be impacted by AI in a very, very significant way. And I can tell you out of all of those industries, what we thought was going to be the hardest to impact, which is knowledge work, right? People who understand and do large, complex tasks involving much of the language that we've written, as well as all the ideas that we've generated, the kinds of new thinking that goes into strategy, into operations, and all of those things. We thought that would be the hardest, but it turns out because we've written out all of those ideas, ChatGPT is able to digest that and provide incredible new insights for people to, for example, creating a website or building a software system is not that difficult to do if you're able to use something like ChatGPT as an assistant or a co-pilot. There's in fact a product called Copilot that makes software engineering much easier to do if you're a user of something like GitHub, right? Take another example. For people who generate new kinds of content, marketing, or campaigns of various kinds, it's much easier to understand the audience and create customized content for individual audiences for specific types of messages. Much cheaper to do that compared to what we were trying to do before, number 2. Number 3, education. It's no longer enough to teach things by rote. You cannot just expect people to learn something by heart and repeat it, because that's no longer differentiating or giving a person a skill that they don't, they cannot get in a machine. So that's no longer enough. I think what we need to teach human beings is to be critical thinkers, to be able to ask the right question. Asking the right question is a very, very hard thing, and that requires a tremendous amount of not only creativity, but also an understanding of the entire environment, which is very hard for AIs to do. So education has to move in that direction. You name the industry, I can tell you an application of AIs, and specifically generative AIs or GPT-like AIs in that industry. So I would just put on the table that literally everything we do will change in the next decade, maybe in the next 5 years. So now is the time to think about where do we place our bets? How do we make this a positive force for humanity? And making it a positive force is not easy. It's very difficult because this can be used for nefarious purposes. People who want to generate misinformation can send this off in the direction that we don't want it to go. People who want to emotionally manipulate people can do so using ChatGPT. I don't know if you've heard, but a lot of people have gotten sidetracked, have gotten very depressed. I know there's been cases of people, harming themselves or other people based on ChatGPT and so forth. All of those kinds of things can happen. So for a society, for a democracy, for the whole world, this kind of technology will have a huge impact. I think leaders like you in the audience have to come together, think about what is the right way to deploy this, what is the responsible way to deploy this, what makes sense to put as boundaries or the regulations needed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I would like to now touch on the questions that we received from the audience. I think you answered the question from Daniel Cunningham on EdTech, but there is an important question related exactly to the ethical aspect and the responsibility of the society now that we have come along so far with this technology to prevent it from being used, being weaponized and being used for nefarious purposes. And the question really is, training and validating truth is something that we do as parents. Who is the parent of ChatGPT, and how do we trust that parent integrity to be the role model? In other words, very important question of what would be the equivalent of FDA when it comes to these new technologies, and how do you think governments and just social out there, the ESG, can have a good stand and not over-regulate, but still put some guardrails around ChatGPT and similar technologies? How safe is it, and so on, is related to this question.
Yeah, ESG is a particularly important topic related to AI. The social and governance questions are very big, and they're not yet solved. If you have heard about the recent letter that some people came together and said, hey, look, let's just pause this extraordinarily fast movement of this entire field so that we can figure out what the social impact is, what the governance models ought to be, what should be the regulation, and so forth. The reason behind that is because we don't yet understand how to use these technologies in a way that does not harm society. We just currently don't. There's a lot of conversations going on, and there are new academic as well as government agencies that are coming forward. As you know, EU already has a proposed law. Actually, the law was passed a few years ago, and now they've proposed some changes to it. The US is considering some new regulations. I think other countries are figuring out what kinds of legal parameters to use. This is a wide open question at this point in time, and I think we as a society have to come together, not just technologists. That would be the wrong thing to do. I think it should be business people, it should be philosophers, social scientists, other kinds of fields which are impacted by this technology. They all have, we all have to come together and figure out what's the right way to deal with it. I don't think the answers are very clear yet. If I'm very honest with myself, the answers are not very clear, and I think we need to come together to solve these problems. So I'll stop here. I would love to hear if there are any other questions from the audience.
There are two questions, but you have to be very quick. We have under
Okay.
a minute left, under 2 minutes left. So one is, can Biome test be used in Macedonia and how? Quick question.
The general answer is yes. We need to figure out some distribution and regulatory
Okay.
issues on the border.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then the other one is, how do we prevent a darknet version of ChatGPT aimed to support criminal activities? Of course, it's related to your previous discussion on how we can put some guardrails about ChatGPT, but what's your opinion on this topic?
It is very hard. I think we have some trade-offs that we have to grapple with. If we put too many blockages, then we stop innovation. But if we open things up, I think we're going to create issues. Laws and regulation, I believe, are the right answer. We need to figure it out.
Great. Thank you. And just in closing, before I thank you and thank the audience for participation, I wanted to ask, there has been a looming question out there. First of all, these language technologies have surpassed the Turing test many times over, what Alan Turing was even asking or hoping for some 80 or so years ago. Now it's a reality. But even in an emotional sense, these messages have a tone, they can make you feel in a certain way. So the natural question, and especially from sci-fi movies, people are asking is, are we at some point going to consider these as sentient beings? Are they going to ask for the right to vote, to the right to reproduce, to the right to many other things that we consider as human qualities? So imagine now the tree of life. There are 3 branches, and we are in one of the branches, but maybe between whether that's the mammals or animalia, and there is sentient beings in that tree of life. So that's not unimaginable, and some philosophers are asking this, for example, your friend Max Tegmark. So time is up, but in closing, can you please address this question?
That is the big question of our lifetimes, I believe. Here is my view on it. There is no question in my mind that in the next few decades, machines are going to equal and potentially surpass the intelligence of human beings. In all senses, we call them superintelligence. Now the question is, are those superintelligent machines aligned with human values and human morals and ethics and human progress and even survival, right? Those questions I think we need to answer. It's a big question. I mean, I have to tell you, every single day these days I wake up with these kinds of questions in my mind about what's the best way to progress. About sentience, I think there are a lot of people who believe that, animals are sentient. And I think they have, a lot of people who believe in animal rights. So I will bet you that there will be a lot of people, and there are in fact already a lot of people, that when machines reach a level of intelligence and similarity to humans, that they will have certain kinds of roles in society to play which are undefined at the moment. And that's where democracy has to come together and define what is the right role for these kinds of machines, just like we've defined the roles of everything else in a legal, lawful society, of like the roles of animals, the roles of the environment, the role of machines. Everything has to be defined by democracy. So I'd come back to you and say, we are a democracy. Let's get together and figure out and vote for the right leaders who can bring these kinds of laws for our own future and for the future of our children. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Guru. Thank you. Thank you, Blagodarime, for your participation. And thank you to the audience for this response and the question. Fascinating topic. And I hope we all keep thinking about these topics, especially the last one, and the ethics of AI collectively. Thank you so much for coming.